Hi there, welcome to BS of the Week. And as you can see, unfortunately, Patrick is not with us today. So you are stuck with my good self, Kevin Lucy from the Glasgow Rushmores. And we have a special guest who is...
Hi, it's Lee Dunstan, head coach of the Southern Statesmen.
Hi, Lee. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, Kev. It's great to be here.
It is good to be here. So what we're going to do today is we're going to run through the fixtures as they were played last weekend. And Lee's going to take the top half of the draw, and I'm going to take the bottom half of the draw. See that these were conference games. So Lee, without further ado, do you want to guide us through the games that you have there?
Yeah, thanks, Kev. So kicking off, we had the Anchorage Bombers against Darlington Sun Devils. Both teams came into this one looking for their first win, and it was the Sun Devils that came away with what was a comfortable win over the Bombers. The game was pretty much done by half-time. And yeah, it was a good show by Coach Andrew's team. And yeah, so I mean, they're off and running. Hopefully, they'll pick up a few more wins before the end of the season, and it's a positive result for the Sun Devils. Player to watch, Sun Devils. Just an interesting one is running back Tap, who has been on their development squad. He was drafted as a 25, 45, 30 running back, and he's now a 20, 60, 20 running back. And that's
wow.
A player that I'm going to be watching over the next few seasons just to see how he goes. Next up for the Sun Devils is they play the Statesmen. It'll be interesting to see them in their new look uniform and logo. As for the Bombers, they go to 0-4, and you've got to be thinking that Coach Bladdock is looking possibly #1 draft pick again this season. They've got that pick at the moment. I can't really see them losing that. Moving on to the next game. This is why Patrick's done a runner. So we've got the Fire versus the Surfers. Both teams came in 3-0. And it was the Surfers that maintained that unbeaten streak with, again, another comfortable win. Pretty much won it on the back of their running back, Barrows, who notched up 271 yards, and 4 touchdowns, which basically keeps them on pace with the Rivets. As for the Fire, offense really just couldn't get going. Surfers just wouldn't let them get going. And it'll be interesting to see if the Fire can bounce back. They had a good start. Patrick's he's quite a humble guy, and he always plays his team down. But 3-0 is not bad to kick off the season. It'll be interesting to see where they go. They've got 2 tough games next. They've got the Phoenix next, which isn't going to be easy, and then they've also got the Statesmen after. So,
is that not an easy game, the Statesman one?
It could well be, actually, to be honest. Yeah, I should have just said, well, Phoenix next. That's a tough game.
Yeah.
As for the Surfers, like I said, they're keeping pace with the Rivets at the moment, but again, they've got 2 tough games coming up. They've got the Maroons next, which is always a tough one, and then they face the Rivets. So Surfers' season could be made or lost in the next 2 weeks. Then we've got Exmouth Titans at the Thirlby Rhinos, and it was a 27-12 win for the Titans. And again, another one pretty much done by half-time. Running back Rhodes put up some good numbers, 145 yards, 3 touchdowns. Rhinos, again, like the Fire, struggled to get any offense going whatsoever, and sitting at 0-4. Again, I'm wondering now if Coach Wesley is playing for draft picks or draft position going forward. Titans 2-1-1, and I wonder if that one tied game is going to hurt them at the end of the season. They're sitting behind the Packers and Stormers at the moment, who they play next week. So you know, I don't know, that one game could go for them or against them at the moment. I'm a little bit worried it might go against them, but we'll see how it goes. Next one, Fulham Hollow Devils at the Port Royal Buccaneers. And you've got a 3-0 team, the Buccaneers, going up against an 0-3 team in the Hollow Devils. And there was only ever going to be one winner in this game. Another comfortable home win, 43-3. And I keep saying the same thing, but it's another game that was over by half-time. They could pretty much coast the rest. What I like about the Buccaneers is they've got two very young running backs, Riggins and Ventimon. One is age 1, the other one's rookie. I think if those two develop over the next couple of seasons, Bucks are going to be a very strong team going forward. Massive game next week against the Sharks. That's a big game in regard to that division, and also possibly #1 seed going into the playoffs. As for the Hollow Devils, 0-4, no offense to speak of in this game. They've got a second-year quarterback, something to build around. But again, like some of the other teams here, maybe draft position at this stage is what they're playing for. Then we move on to the Rushmores versus the Chargers. Again, both looking for their first win, and Chargers came out with a win. And if you look at the stats on this game, Rushmores are the winners. Dominated the game in nearly every stat possible, apart from putting enough points on the board. They played well, dominated possession, and I think you'll probably agree, Kev, we spoke about it earlier off air. You could easily be sitting 3-1 at this stage, instead of 0-4. It's such small margins.
Yes, it's not been my season so far.
It's not. As for Chris's team, again, they were outplayed stat-wise, but they put the points on the board. And at the end of the day, that's what matters.
It is unfortunate,
It is, you know, it's
See, this is all part of a master plan, Lee, because what I'm really planning on doing is going 0-9, winning my last game of the season so that I get the first win bonus.
First win incentive.
And then coach up every youngster I've got with my extra 50 points and have a team to behold next season. You see, that's the master plan.
Go, love it, Kev, brilliant. So Patriots next for yourselves. I was going to say possible first win, but now maybe not.
Knowing me, I'll probably screw it up and win that one.
And Chargers, they've got the Rapiers next, so it's interesting to see how Chris deals with Pogue, whether he can handle him or not. On to the next game, which is probably game of the week, shock of the week. Curnow Sharks at the Newcastle Eagles. So both teams off to a great start. Sharks 3-0, Eagles 2-0, and one tied game. And the Eagles came out on top, and it wasn't even close, 31-17 against what many of us think is probably the #1 team in the NFC at the moment. I think there's not many that would argue the Sharks. You know, we would have had Sharks as #1 seed. And possibly, and probably representing us in the bowl at the end of the season. But the Eagles pulled it off. Coach Duggan, if you read his comments after the game, not a happy man at all. Called out his quarterback, and you could just sense, don't approach Coach Duggan for a couple of days because he's not going to be happy. As for Coach Haggis, great win, deserved win. Two running backs, Marcello and Giuffria, both gained over 100 yards. They've got a nice run in, so I can't see nothing stopping the Eagles making the playoffs, possibly winning that division as well. As for the Sharks, #1 seed's now in doubt. They've got the Bucks next. Bucks are undefeated in their division. That is going to be a cracking game. And it's a must win for Ben. If they lose to the Bucks, then that could be division gone. Knights, Knaresborough Knights at the Beverley Packers. So Knights came in 1-2, Packers sitting at 3-0. And again, for the home team, another dominant win. Packers under coach Tom Waller, always a good team, always puts out a good team. And they were dominant in this game. 533 yards, total yardage. Running back Lamar, 212 yards on 27 carries, 5 touchdowns. They've got a second-year quarterback, Walsh, who's developing nicely. You just sort of feel everything's in place for the Packers now to sort of continue their dominance. And that's what I say in the PFC, if you don't count the rivets, let's face it, none of us count the rivets, do we? So, and as for the Knights, again, like a lot of teams this week, struggled on offense, struggled to get the ball moving. But looking at the schedule, there's wins there. I think second half of the season, I think Brian will pick up some wins. I wouldn't surprise me to see them finish 4-6, 5-5 possibly. And then a final game for myself, it's the Leeds City 66ers against the, I'm never going to pronounce this, the Rough Riders. And pleased for Craig, for Coach Jones. They lost last week to my Statesman, and it's good to see them bounce back with a win, which I think it's good. It's good for Coach Jones. It shows that, you know, his team can afford a little slip up and then to be able to bounce back. Yeah. I think it's good. It's a good thing. Running back Black gained over 200 yards on 26 carries. Passing game was disappointing. Only 5 completions on 22 attempts. That's a worry. But if your running back's running the ball well, then, you know, that'll carry you enough at the time. Big game for them next week. Hornets, division rivals. Hornets are sitting top of the table, undefeated. Must win to keep pace and to keep that wild card spot alive. Yeah. As for the Rough Riders, again, little offense, no ground game, plus points, defense 6 sacks. That's pleasing. And it's a tight division Rough Riders are in. There's no real dominant team there. So, you know, keep themselves in there. And they've got the Generals next. So that's my review of the top half, Kev.
Excellent, mate. Well done. Some good analysis there, mate. And I don't really disagree with anything much you said there. I think it's all taking shape. We're sort of, I mean, we're not quite halfway through the season, but at this stage, you can start to predict who's having, you know, who are the contenders. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay. So let's have a look at the other half of the old matches that went on. So the first one I've got is the Irish against the Warriors. 31-32. My gosh, what a game this was. This was a total and utter throw fest. 507 yards on one side of the pitch and 417 yards in the air on the other side of the pitch. Could quite honestly have gone anywhere at all here. The Warriors desperately tried to throw the game away because they had 6 turnovers, 3 of which the Irish scored from. So they certainly tried to give them a hand. But solid performances from the Warriors meant that in the last, they were what? In the last 2 minutes, they turned it around because they were actually losing right up until the very last 2 minutes. So a good win here. And basically, you talked about the Eagles, but the Warriors are actually challenging the Eagles for the PFC South quite a bit. That's looking a very interesting matchup there.
Yeah, they are. The Warriors are doing it very quietly.
They're ticking away. Yeah.
Just notching up the wins, yeah. Yeah,
they're ticking away quite nicely. Next game on my list is the Rapiers and the Patriots. The Rapiers, go top in a very tight PFC East with that result. And again, that's another division that's looking as if it could go absolutely any way there. Nobody can really afford to lose. To be quite honest, this was a steady job by the Rapiers. And despite Pogue having an off day, and by God, did he have an off day? He was totally outmanned, outmarked. Only a 39 rating and a just 50% completion, which is not very un-Pogue-like. But the thing is that we had 75 attempted passes. So, the law of averages just won out in that one. Just keep passing it. And eventually it'll go to the right person at the right time in the right place,
Does any team want their quarterback throwing the ball 75 times?
It's just unbelievable, And basically, McNamee and Orlando got the job done. They kept catching it. And it was a 19-6, relatively comfortable victory for them. Next one on my list, Maroons against the Phoenix. The Phoenix are looking good for the playoffs here, I believe, after that win. They're doing a very steady job. But last week's coach of the week, Scott Kramer, really was just outplayed, I'm afraid. This time, it was, again, another Phoenix defensive masterclass from Ian. He is putting together one hell of a defense alongside your own there. But again, it was it was a Phoenix win, and it was a deserved Phoenix win, to be quite honest. Not sure about the Maroons. They're sliding away. They really have got to start winning again now to have any chance of getting into the playoffs. But good, solid performance from the Phoenix, and they go marching on, basically. The Generals against the Hornets. 6-30 was or 36 was the score for this one, and it was 24-3 at half time. So again, basically not much of a competition. The Hornets march on as usual. Calgary, again, was as usual, a men's self. He's now thrown this season for over 1,000 yards, and that's the 9th consecutive season he has done that. And if you've got a Calgary Tripson, but it's particularly a sort of Calgary or a Tripson, consistently turning it on in your franchise, then you've got to be up there. And we've talked about Ben maybe being our number one selection, as it were, for the LFC. Well, I think the Hornets have definitely taken over that. Depends on next week's game, but if they can see off the 66ers, they're looking very, very good.
Fully agree with that.
Yeah. Alex is now facing a little bit of a battle in the PFC East. It hasn't gone all his own way, and he's still got a little bit of work to do there because that could go absolutely anyway, I think. It's still all to play for. Statesman against the Rivets. Well, unfortunately, Lee, what can we say? The Rivets are the Rivets. 34-0 at halftime, game over, and the Rivets just go marching on. What Conrad does is absolutely amazing. And I know we all take the mickey and we all have a bit of a go and all the rest of it, but you've got to really hold your hands up to him and say he has just a fantastic setup there. The thing that really has shocked me is not just the age of his players, but if you look at his injuries, they are non-existent. He has kept every single player, bar one, I think, fit. And I think, he's lying 30th in the injury league table. So how he does it with old players like that, I have no idea. It will be interesting when the wheel does fall off, but I think it's still pretty firmly put on there. I can't see anybody beating him this season, I've got to be honest.
I can't. I just, as a coach, you just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You really don't. Defense, you just, I watched how we played them in the bowl. I looked what we did. This week, I thought I'll try something different. I thought my front four are good.
Yeah.
They will stop most running games. So I thought I'll leave them to it. I'll let them deal with Emu. And then I thought the rest of the defense, I'm going to set up for the deep pass.
Yeah.
And 48 points later,
Yes.
You can't do nothing. There's nothing you can do. There's nothing. They're a freak.
Yeah, you just got to make sure you don't have them on your schedule. That's the easiest way.
Yeah, join the Atlantic.
Yeah. Okay, next game. Anyway, Lee, commiserations on that one, mate. I know how you feel. Shadows against the Stormers. Again, comfortable win here for the Stormers, 40-14. And the Shadows have struggled all season, to be quite honest, and they continue to do so. The game was relatively close until the fourth quarter, which did surprise me a little bit, actually. And then in the fourth quarter, the Stormers put up 17 unanswered points, and it's obviously game over. Mark sitting at 3-1, still very much in contention for the postseason. So again, that's another one to keep an eye on. Stormers, again, have just been plodding along quite nicely, clocking up wins, and they're still in a very good position now. Again, another very close game, the Bulldogs against the Massive. Bulldogs 13 and the Massive 12. You can't really get any closer than that. A tight game. Win from Miranda makes the PF South very interesting as well. So there are a lot of divisions. If you take the Rivets, no disrespect to Conrad, but if you take the Rivets out of Big Sky, basically, there are some very, very interesting divisions going on and some really close matchups that are happening. And again, the Bulldogs haven't done themselves any harm. As for the Massive, Martin's season, really, to be quite honest, looks like it's just one to forget. He's got still to come as well, just to make things even better. He's got the Irish, he's got the Bucks twice, he's got the Sharks, and he's got the Hornets still to come.
Yeah, that's a good draft pick next season.
Yeah, so I think, as I say, the Massive season is massively over, unfortunately. Last one on my list is the Huskies against the Weasels. 31-7 victory for the Weasels. Again, straightforward. Weasels win, fairly comfortable, and it keeps them top of the LFC South and looking more and more like they're heading towards the playoffs. They're looking really quite strong there. As you say, there's still some ground to go, as it were, on that. But I think it will be, they're not doing themselves any harm, let's put it that way. So that was basically, I think, between the two of us, I think we've covered all the games. I don't think we missed anything out. What are your general sort of thoughts on where the league is at the moment then? Because I was sort of saying, with the Rivets out of it, I think it's very tight.
I think it is indeed. I think PFC especially, I've got some very good teams. Yeah, like I said, take the Rivets away. Yeah. There are some very good teams in the PFC. I mean, the Packers are looking good. Yeah. Week 8, they play the Rivets. At the moment, I personally believe that Tom is probably at the moment the only coach that I think that can give the Rivets a real challenge. He's got a good team there. So all eyes on week 8 is when those two clash in what could be a very good game. Like I said, Eagles are going along nicely. Warriors are just doing it very quietly. Stormers are going well. Titans, you can't rule out the Titans. James knows what he's doing.
It's certainly all to play for, I think.
Gary's Surfers are sitting there at 4-0. They're looking strong. The PFC East, any of those 4 teams at the moment are still in it. Yeah. LFC, Phoenix are just a tough team. Whenever we play them, you just flip a coin. It can go either way. They're so hard to run on. Hornets looking good. Weasels are just moving on nicely. Bucks are looking strong. Sharks are strong. It's a good season. It's a very good season, minus the Rivets.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Lee, we thank you very much for coming along to to be our guest. And we have a tradition with our guests. And what we do with them is we ask them a few questions. So if you're happy for me to ask you a few questions.
Ask away, Kev. Ask away.
Well, I shall do it then. So basically, you've had a bit of a strange season so far. So where do you think the Statesman are headed this season? What are your expectations for the rest of the season?
Coming into this season, I was confident we'd get the playoffs. I was confident that we had a shot at the division, or regain, or holding on to our division. Mistake. I was too slow to get a motivation coaching, and that's hurt me up to this point. Week 1 against the Phoenix, we lost 9-6. If we were playing at full level, that easily could have gone our way. Not saying it would have. They're always close, but we could have won that. Hornets, I think we lost by 5-6 points again. And again, like yourselves, we could be sitting at 3-1 at this stage. But we're sitting at 1-3. Rest of the season, I'm a little bit worried, Kev. I'm not going to lie. I've got to win every game. I don't think I can catch the Phoenix if I win every game. I think Phoenix, even if I beat them at my place, will go on to win the division. I can't see them losing more than one game. So then you're looking at wild card. And I don't think 6-4 will do it. I think I've got to go 7-3. Because you're then up against either the Bucks or the Sharks for one of those places. And I can see both of them getting at least 8 wins. So that would rule me out. It's Craig's 66ers at the moment that's holding the other wild card spot. And I think that's the one I've got to go after. Is that second wild card spot. We've got the motivation coaching now. So we've got to win the remaining games. That's it. Simple.
I don't want to worry you, but the 66ers haven't got a very difficult run in because they play me twice. So that's not going to help you much.
Are they playing you in week 10?
No, 9.
Ah, no.
The final one.
But it's doable, but we made it hard for ourselves.
You're making it interesting for yourselves.
And it's frustrating because we're a better team than when we were last season. That's what's frustrating, is we've improved in certain areas and we've just made it hard for ourselves by not getting the right people in. But
you've been around you've been around the Big Sky for a long, long time. Do you remember casting your mind back? Because the drafts are always great fun, I always think. So do you remember a sort of a player, if you like, that you barely missed out on the draft that you think would have made a massive difference to your team, or is it now all dead and buried, basically?
I don't really focus on who I miss out on because basically I view it as you just weren't going to get them. If they're taken before you, they're obviously not going to fall in your lap. So you basically look at it as if, okay, it's my pick, what's there, and you just make the best out of what you've got. So the nearest I can get to answering that question is last season, first round. So the season before, I took a returner in round 1, and he has done amazingly well. And there was 2 returners in the last draft just gone that were both, I think, level 8 Q70, and I was picking low 20s, and I would have taken either of those 2 with the first round again. And the Rapiers took one of them at pick 20, and the Maroons took the other one at pick 24. So I think last season was probably the first time I thought, come on, just a couple more picks. But I mean, and it just goes to show that how much influence again, going back to the rivets that, that they've had and Conrad has, is that up until season 34, we've never had a returner drafted in the first round.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen. People would go, ooh. And then in the last 2 drafts, we've had 3 returners go in round 1 because, Rivets and Todd and Tad with their preachings about special teams are basically showing us that if you don't have a special teams, you're going to struggle. So now you've got returners going in round 1, which is crazy.
Yeah, I know. Okay, final question for you then, Lee. Okay, you don't know if you know this, but you're getting to make the draft this year.
Yes.
So if that is the case and you're making the draft, and we'll assume you've got first pick, who are you picking?
At the moment, I would go for your level 9 tech 80 wide receiver elite with every attribute going.
So you're not really asking for much, are you?
That's what we need at the moment. Is if we had that stud at wide receiver, then that would just take our passing game to another level. Yeah. So that's what I'd go for if I had the number 1 pick.
Yeah, well, we shall keep our eyes out to see what happens. Lee, look, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Thanks for coming along, and hopefully we'll get you on before the end of the season as well again, if that's good with you, mate.
That's fine.
So I think from both of us, it's probably goodbye from me and it's goodbye from him, or whatever. So 2 of you say bye, guys. You take care.
Goodbye. Thanks, Kev.